My name is Janet McBull. I am the Interim Executive Director at the Smart Cities Council Australia New Zealand. We have been hosting the Digital Twin Challenge since last year, which will culminate in a release of resources at Digital Twin Week as part of Smart Cities Week 2022 in Melbourne, but more on that later. Today we're here to do an exchange in terms of knowledge share with India, facilitated by the Smart Cities Council team in India. Just going back to the challenge now, this is the cohort participating in the challenge. We have 16 organisations working on a number of projects, and the aim of the challenge was to catalyse the marketplace for digital twin across Australia and New Zealand. And so you'll see a mixture of solution providers, consultants, and local government as part of the mix there in terms of the participants. It's the first time that the Smart Cities Council has run the challenge, and the idea was that we would identify thought leaders in this space, share their knowledge, share their expertise, connect them with each other, produce a set of resources that would be useful for the ecosystem, but more importantly, just ensure we were engaging in all the right circles to keep the conversations going and flowing and supporting progress in the digital twin space. Digital twins, from the perspective of Smart Cities Council, we talk about it being a data-driven capability that accelerates outcome-focused decision-making, delivering better, quicker, and cheaper infrastructure and services. And of course, infrastructure and services that support cities, towns, and regions to be more livable, workable, and sustainable. Specifically, our work is underpinned by this UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we're in 2022. We've got just over 8 years to achieve these. It is our North Star. Obviously, we're not going to be able to achieve all of them in their entirety, and so it is a progression, it is a journey, but that is where our work is focused alongside our collaborators, our members, our partners, and the wider ecosystem across Australia, New Zealand, and globally. The digital twin, we talk about the digital twin as a capability, as I mentioned. So we talk about it being able to visualize, to integrate data, to connect data, so connect sources of data, integrate that data, run some analytics, and then some simulations. And it's all about optimizing decision making. It doesn't have to be one solution. It can be a culmination of solutions. But the idea is that we talk about the why and focus on the why. What decision is it that we're wanting to make? What insights are we wanting? And then importantly, at the other side, at the starting point, think about our data sources and obviously around data leadership, which talks about security, privacy, ethics, governance in terms of data. Today, we have a speaker from our Digital Twin Challenge cohort, Harman Singh from GHD. But before Harman kicks off, we have an update from some other members of our cohort, and I'll play the video, which was actually prepared for the Aotearoa Digital Twin Summit, which we hosted in New Zealand on the 7th of July this year. So this is a quick video just providing an update on an overview and then an update on the challenge.
What you have here direct are the feeds from the IoT sensors you have some attributes about them. This is for people counting. So in red is where you have above 200 people, I believe. You have bicycle counter as well. So this is a camera counter and this is an end counter from meshed. You can check for bicycles as well, so not that much. You can see the change in time. So this is the latest one. You can just go backward up to 3 last reading, 1 per hour for the camera counters and 1 each 10 minutes for the end counters. You can switch between the generic view and the general view and the CCTV view. This is a simulated view of a camera counter, and the color coding is giving an impression of how the pavement in green here is occupied and how the road here in red is occupied. For the pavement in green, 1 people was counted at 2 p.m. And for the vehicles, 322 at 11. So, and you can switch to another camera. So at this stage, we have 91 vehicles, 2 people, and you can move other times. Here's 371 vehicles, a bit more traffic. And then at this time, you have 106 people and 299 vehicles.
Hi, my name is Daniel Jurgens. I'm the head of digital at WSP in New Zealand. My team's remit is both across the internal transformation of all our sectors and digital advisory to clients. We have about 2,000 staff in New Zealand that we look after, and we're part of a group of over 61,000 experts across the globe. We work on key projects as well. My team is involved in delivering City Rail Link. We've also delivered the spatial twin for New South Wales. We've just won the award to deliver the spatial twin or the digital twin of Victoria in Australia. And more locally, at a local smaller scale, we've recently completed the Toi Toi project in Hawke's Bay. So what is our goals with the Digital Twin Challenge? At WSP, we want to be significant contributors to digital twins in New Zealand and globally. We want this to be an open environment, and we want to play nicely with our industry peers and government bodies. We have over 2,000 practitioners in New Zealand, 61,000 globally, and what we are enabling is digital twins by stealth. So what that means is that all of our projects will enable the creation of twin by default. What we want to achieve in this challenge is to enable this process so that we can create these twins for the greater good of New Zealand. Thank you for your time. We're very excited to be part of this challenge. We really believe in the value and the importance of this. If we enable these twins and we play nicely together, this could be a step change for everyone.
All right. So with that, that was obviously an update from the University of New South Wales, the grid at the University of New South Wales and WSP. I will now, I will shortly hand you over to Harman Singh from GHD. Harman has been part of the cohort since the very beginning and is focused on the project related to IoT and digital twins alongside a number of other participants. I will now hand over to Harman, who will walk you through the project and a little bit more about the Digital Twin Challenge, and I'll come back at the end of the session. A few minutes, Harman, I'll stop sharing if you then want to take the lead. Sure,
thanks, Janet. Very excited, looking forward to the Digital Twin Week later in the year.
Yeah.
I am now hopefully sharing my screen, and you can confirm you can see that.
Yep, just in yep, there we go, perfect.
Awesome. Well, good day, good afternoon, good morning, wherever we all are. It's going to be the next 30 minutes or so that you will be with me, and yeah, we'll go through some really fun and exciting ways of learning about these two big buzzwords, digital twins and smart cities. Both of them have been around for a while, so I think in today's session, my intent is to kind of just get some basic, level of understanding and alignment between these two individually. That we'll talk about smart cities first, we'll talk about digital twin and isolation first, and then we'll try to club them together and then see what kind of value, what kind of benefits come out when we see the synergies between smart cities and digital twins. So that's the intent for the session today, and the session is being recorded. So of course, everyone is welcome to watch later, and I'll share my details there in case anyone has any questions that want to reach out. Before I start, though, a little bit of an introduction about the company I work for. So I'm a small leaf on a big tree, and that big tree is GHD. So GHD, I call it the 90-10-1 company. 90 plus years in operation and over 10,000 people all over the world. Of course, you can see all the other stats there. But I think that the key one is that we all are working towards one common purpose, which is to create lasting community benefits. So very proud of working for such an organization, purpose-driven organization like GHD. And yeah, my role has been, I'm the Smart Cities and Places lead at GHD, and specifically in the digital business of GHD. And I work with a lot of state and local governments, and we think about how do we make the lives of the citizens better in a city. Thinking about smart cities, we'll talk about what does it actually mean. What is the definition of a smart city? And by the way, before I jump into that, a quick overview of how some of the more advanced governments perceive how smart cities and digital twins fit together. So the graphic that you have up there is from New South Wales government, the state government, and they have created this thing called Infrastructure New South Wales State Strategy. And as a part of that, they have done a really good job of kind of stitching together all the different components that lead up to a digital twin and how the whole digital twin thing fits within the umbrella of smart cities. So if you look at this pyramid, it starts with the bottommost layer, wherein you have all the data and the different data sets that are either existing or can be accessed really quickly. For example, planning data, the GIS data, asset data, IoT, SCADA-related data sets, and then cameras and photogrammetry and everything else. So all those data sets form the most foundational layer of this pyramid. But then once we have a lot of data, what do? We try to bring them together through what we call digital technologies or enablers. And this is the layer where you have all kind of analytics running, the machine learning, the advanced analytics, the AIs of the world. And what we're trying to do through the use of these technologies is bring out the insights from that data. So data without insights and action is value not realized. So the second layer is all about bringing out the intelligence out of the data. And then once we have the intelligence, we need to put this data in some kind of a structure or a format that it becomes usable, repeatable, and standard in the way it is consumed by everyone. So that's the governance layer, digital governance / management layer. This is where we put in all kind of policies and procedures around how data from different sources need to be integrated, need to be managed, need to be stored, and how it will be consumed by the different stakeholders who would want to make the most out of that data. The next layer above is when, once we have these kind of three foundational things done, we try to go for creating a digital twin. Now, as Janet just explained, digital twin, of course, is a whole new world in itself. And we talk about some of the capabilities around how digital twins are defined, how they operate and all. I'll talk more about that in some of the follow-up slides. At this stage, all I'm going to say is that digital twin layer is where we need to start thinking about, do we start with the digital twin of one piece of asset or a group of asset? And if yes, what kind of assets do we start with creating a digital twin? And once we have digital twin created for multiple assets, that is what makes the next layer, which is smart infrastructure. So this could be, for example, if we have a digital twin for, let's say, all of our buildings in a particular local government area, so that becomes our smart buildings infrastructure. So that's where the smart infrastructure comes together. And once you bring a whole lot of pieces of infrastructure together, that essentially makes this the smart city. So this is a really good, simplistic way of understanding how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Personally loved it, and I Googled it from data.newsouthwales.gov.au, and this picture shows up there. Now I'm going to delve into one by one. We'll start with top down. We'll start with smart cities first, and then we'll talk a little bit about digital twins, and then I'll share with you a few examples of how the two are coming together. So I love this, smart city basics. I want to make sure we are all kind of aligned in terms of the definition and whatnot about smart cities. The interesting question I pose the audience whenever I'm picturing smart cities is, so if I were to ask this question to a group of people in a particular city, and the question is, do we live in a smart city? And I normally ask people to raise their hand if they think it is yes. And you know what? Most of the time, there's hardly those kind of clear hands up or hands down. Some of them are like in the middle saying, well, maybe kind of a thing. And so the point I try to make is that, you know, sometimes it's a difficult question to answer in terms of whether or not we live in a smart city. And if someone says, yes, I do live in a smart city, or no, I don't, and then I ask a follow-up question as, what if I would ask the same question to your neighbor or someone sitting next to you? Do you think they're going to respond the same way? And they go like, probably no, because that's the whole point about defining what a smart city is. Unless we have a clear definition, and some people would say that there is no definition, but I am of the opinion there is a firm definition. In fact, there are quite a few different flavors of the definition of smart cities. But one of the common themes amongst all those different flavors of smart city definition is that it's all about tech and data for the good of citizens. Technology and data for the good of citizens. And I think that's the key point here. It's all about the citizens. It's all about how a city interacts with its citizens. Could be individuals, could be businesses, could be communities, and how the city makes those individuals, those businesses, those communities smarter in the way they go about doing their day-to-day work. So it's less about technology alone. It's less about data alone. It's all about data and technology being enablers, and that end goal being the betterment of the citizens. Okay, why this picture? Well, I want to give you a simplistic model of what does a smart city would look like. And this picture is a good, again, initiation point wherein I encourage people to look at this picture and tell me what do they see in here. And I guess if you take a moment and look at it, I'm sure you'll be able to point out there are a few buildings here on the left. We do see some power generation going on, some energy being produced here in the middle. There is, of course, that trains and buses, that public transport on the road. There is also some kind of a water channel going around on one side, and there is some kind of waste management happening, wastewater treatment or something happening on the corner there. But essentially, these are the things that you would see in a typical city. Now, if we were to add the word smart in front of each one of these, smart buildings, smart energy, smart transport, smart water, smart environment, and roll them up under an umbrella of smart governance, that essentially becomes the key pillars of a smart city. And you know, this kind of a pillared approach to smart city is sometimes really helpful. When you think about a city, you know, you're normally thinking about so many things and things might become a bit vague. So trying to put a bit of a framework, a structure to how a smart city is created, in this case, the 5 key pillars of a smart city, and that kind of a model really helps conceptualize the whole concept of smart city. Again, sticking to the basics, and I'm trying to keep it, you know, very simple at the moment purposely, because I don't want to kind of put in a whole lot of technical jargon in there. Smart cities is something that each one of us, because by virtue of us living in a city, we should be able to talk about it. We should be able to know about it. So a simple way to explore or to think about a smart city is, well, what are the ways that a city could become a smart city? Traditionally, there are these 3 pathways. Okay, simplifying things, but these are the 3 traditional pathways to become a smart city. The first one is what we can call the ad hoc approach to a smart city. And this is the most common approach. And essentially what we are doing is we have an existing city and the way it was operating and working, and we kind of keep adding some smarts on top of it in a piecemeal manner. You know, some cities would go out and do, let's say, a smart energy pilot, or a smart parking implementation, or a smart waste management implementation. So these kind of smarts keep getting added, and you know, things that work. They're going to say, oh, let's do it all. For example, smart lighting seems to be a great idea. Well, let's convert all the lights that we have in the public space into smart lights. Great. So that's adding smart in a piecemeal manner to a city and making it smarter with every passing day. Very common approach. Examples include majority of the cities in Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, and even some of the other big cities in the world like Vancouver and all. But I think you can relate to it. This is the most common approach to making a smart city. The other two are also something that are quite prevalent and at least getting more popular with every passing day. The first one is, the second one is the accelerated approach. So we're calling it accelerated approach, but essentially what we're saying is that there is a fast track way to becoming a smart city, which is at the back of a major event, like, think of a city hosting Olympics or some major, football event or whatnot. And the examples I would think of is like Rio de Janeiro with the Football World Cup and Olympics back in 2014, 2016, Dubai with its Dubai 2020 Expo, and now Brisbane, which is, by the way, going to be hosting the 2032 Olympics. So whenever these kind of major events happen, those are opportunities for city to pump in a whole lot of capital, invest into transforming that city in a very short period of time. And that's what I call the accelerator approach. Cities become smart cities in relatively short period of time. The last but not the least is this third approach. We're calling it the greenfields approach. And think of it like creating a smart city from scratch. Because each of these approaches have their own pros and cons. With an ad hoc approach, while you can slowly keep adding things, but sometimes the legacy systems, the legacy ways of doing things become a big deterrent. And you would hear a lot of things like, oh, we can't do this, we can't implement this new technology, we can't do this new thing. Even though we feel like that's the right thing to do, it won't work. Why? Because our existing systems don't support this, or they can't be stretched beyond their current limits and whatnot. So it has its own pros and cons. Accelerator approach, very capital intensive. So we need a lot of money to dollars to be pumped into the city, and sometimes those are not available for every city. So pros and cons of each of these approaches. Greenfields approach is another one which is rare in Australia, but I think it's been it's picking up in Australia too. And this is really where cities determine a certain portion of land as a greenfield kind of a site, and use that to create a smart city from scratch. And you might have heard about some of the recent examples, cities in the US, China, and India. A lot of them are using this approach. Again, own advantages, own disadvantages, pros and cons exist. But this is traditionally how smart cities get created. So that was a bit of I would say, level setting around smart cities first. And now we're going to move on to the next big topic, which is digital twin. All right, so what I'm sharing with you here is a research that was done in terms of, just looking at research from Google in terms of which countries are searching for digital twins. And surprisingly, if you look at this, interest in digital twin by countries, and this is a bit dated and a couple of years old, but I think things wouldn't have changed a whole lot in this. You would see that some of the countries where we talk a whole lot of digital twin is an popular search term. Australia ranks pretty high there. Yeah, even ahead of UK in that regard. And then, you look at Dubai and UAE coming in the top 10, and then closely followed by India, which is ahead of even the United States when it comes to the interest around digital twin. So the bottom line is, I think digital twin is a very popular term in some of the economies, some of the countries, some of the geographies where we all are today, or at least this audience is today. So let's take a moment to make sure we all get a good understanding of what is a digital twin, so that at least for the purpose of this presentation, we'll be using the same vocabulary. In digital twin challenge or in Smart Cities Council here in Australia and all, we again came across a few different versions of the digital twin definition. Common theme across all of those was that a good way to describe a digital twin is that it is a digital replica of a physical asset. You could change the word from digital to virtual or whatever, and similarly, a physical asset could be changed to a few different ways. But I think the essence is that a digital replica of a physical asset is a good kind of generic definition of digital twin that works. But then we also extended it to say it's not just about the definition, it's about what are the core capabilities that digital twins should possess. And Janet just alluded to those 5 key capabilities that we think are the foundational capabilities for any digital twin: connect, integrate, analyze, simulate, visualize. We'll talk slightly briefly about each one of those. So look, connect is all about, bringing in the data sets, the data sources, connecting them to that digital twin model that we want to create. So that's the most essential step, because data is the prerequisite for digital twin, and getting that data from different sources is that whole connect piece. Whether we talk about the connectivity modes like 4G, 5G, things like LoRaWAN and all other kind of connectivity modes. Those are all coming in. That first thing is how do we connect the data sets into that central model that we want to create. Integrate. It's all about is it possible for these data sets to actually come together, to talk to each other, to kind of feed off each other? And that's the whole integration pieces where we try to make those connections between the different disparate data sets. Many a time, these data sets are actually coming in from different sources. So there might be some boundaries that need to be created, and all that is part of the integrate stage. Analyze is all about, now let's drill deep into this data that we have and figure out what is of importance, what is of non-importance. And then, simulate is like using all kind of what-if scenarios with this. So simulate and visualize, they could actually be turned around and swapped. Visualize could come first in terms of, let's create a visual graphic or a dashboard of all that data, but then also do the simulations, which also need to be then visualized in terms of what happens if I change blah, blah, blah in a particular data set. So running the what-if scenario so that instead of changing the way a physical asset is operating, we want to be able to do some kind of scenario planning in the digital replica version of it. Think of it as a sandbox environment in a more traditional IT sense. Before you roll out a software, you do your testing in what we call a sandbox environment and then bring it into a production environment. So this whole thing, simulation, is very similar to that. And of course, visualization we talked about is the ability to, in a logical manner, display all those things that are happening within a digital twin. So those are the 5 key capabilities of digital twin. And with this, what we have done is we have tried to spend some time going through the basics of both digital twin and smart cities. And now we're going to talk about, okay, let's put both of them together. Let's see what does digital twin for smart cities mean. Well, when I talk to some of my friends in councils here, they definitely have experienced this, is where one of the department heads comes to them and say, hey, by the way, we are doing blah, blah, blah. You as a smart city officer, can you please create a digital twin for this? And majority of the time they feel like, digital twin is a bit of a product that can be this bright, smart person called the smart city officer would be able to create it overnight. But what we rarely understand is that you just don't buy a digital twin. You just can't create it overnight. It's a journey that you embark upon. And when we think about that journey, I normally encourage both of my friends in the government and the people who are actually helping create these digital twins. I help them with this question. Let's ask the more important question: why do we need a digital twin in the first place? If you ask that question to the department head who just said, can you create a digital twin? very, very often you would find that they sometimes would struggle into what that reason is. But if they are able to answer, they would say, you know what? Well, we are planning a new development and we need the digital twin for our planning purposes. Well, awesome. That's really good. Someone might say that, by the way, we are responsible for the asset optimization side of the things, and what we are looking for to do with this digital twin is understand how will it help us manage and operate these assets more efficiently. Awesome. Someone else could say, I need digital twin to ensure I'm complying to certain regulatory standards. So getting that first piece clear, the why, in terms of why do we need a digital twin, and it could be one of these 6 or perhaps even more types of digital twin. It's a really good approach to getting started on that journey. So why do cities use digital twin? Well, they're commonly used for undertaking sustainable planning, operating infrastructure asset, to simulate and test scenarios and navigate and investigate future outcomes based on historic data, real-time data. And last but not the least, sometimes a digital twin is a really good way to engage the community, the different stakeholders within your city, and they can all come together. And sometimes, if they see a replica of what the future vision or version of the city would look like, it's much easier for them to kind of contribute towards the development of that future vision. So stakeholder engagement, another great use case for having digital twin in cities. I will be sharing a few snippets with you. Perhaps now is a good time for me to show you one example, a little bit of a video. And they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, a video perhaps a million. So I can probably shut up for some time and play this video and take a breather. And in the meantime, you'll get to see, how in this particular case, it's GHD and how GHD Digital is helping its clients use a digital twin for urban planning purposes. All right, so just give me a moment as I transition over to that video here. It has audio, so you should be able to hear it too. Playing it now. All right, I am back. Well, I think it was self-explanatory. I don't need to recap what you saw in there, but quite a few things that digital twins are able to do from an urban plan perspective, understanding all those population intensities and densities amongst various spots in the city, and of course using it for having a really good quality stakeholder engagement in the process. So at GHD, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and now that we are talking about how GHD is helping our clients in terms of getting these digital twins put together. So one of the key acknowledgements we have is that digital twin sometimes needs to be what we call a fit for purpose digital twin. There's no kind of single size fits all. A kind of digital twin that may work for one city doesn't necessarily mean it will work for others. And also there is a big opportunity as we move from a spatial digital twin to an operational digital twin. And I think that's where the evolution of the industry is happening today. So creating that fit for purpose digital twin using the domain knowledge that GHD has, an extensive network of partners who bring in all the tools that we require to create a digital twin. For example, the previous one, the video that I showed was based on a Esri tool that the GHD people used to create, I think it's called ArcGIS, if I'm not wrong, and the urban version of that. So similarly, there are quite a few different tools that could be used by different people to create those versions of digital twin. But let's talk about what are the key things involved in the creation of that fit for purpose digital twin. It's easy to say, it's really difficult to implement. And I think of this whole digital twin as that, the journey involves having these three P's in place. The first P stands for place, the second P for platform, and the third P for people. As cities embark this journey on creating a digital twin, they need to have, at least in their minds, alignment around, first of all, the place has to, and what I mean by the place is which piece of that infrastructure that the city has are they going to start off their journey by creating a digital twin? But you can't just create it for everything and anything. You need to be mindful of where do you want to start, and how do we create, let's say, a bit of a 3D representation, bring to life one piece of asset, and then start putting together more assets into the mix and create a group of assets or a place that for example, the whole building, it could be digitalized and digital twin can be created. So understanding where do we start off is a first place, is a first point. The second one is about what platform to use. Now, this platform is such an important piece. Think of it as the tool that would help us create a digital twin. So many a times we talk about an open data platform, which can have interoperability. It would allow different data sets to be able to freely talk to each other and have that ability to bring together, to connect the dots from all these data that are there. So picking the right platform is a very important decision, and we need to be very clearly aligned on what platform we want to develop. Some platforms would allow you to actually get onboarded at a really low cost, but then their capabilities might also be limited in terms of what can the digital twin do. Whereas some of the other ones are, quite heavily loaded in features and functionalities, but also require a whole lot of extra efforts to maintain and to bring it together. Well, having that foundational technology capability layer, that platform put in place, is another key element of going on the journey. And last but not the least, in fact, the most important one is around people. Enabling digital twins is really becoming complex. And the reason, one of the key reasons is because it requires talent from so many diverse sectors. People from, we need people from engineering, from planning, environment, people who are really good with visualization, people who have really good, grasp of the spatial data and understand how to analyze that. People who understand good new technologies like Internet of Things and AI and all. Also, cybersecurity, can never forget that. And sometimes a bit more on the softer side is the digital innovation. The whole mindset around how do you transform a place or a community. So that whole mix of diverse skills is very rarely available in any single organization, which actually necessitates the need to have a bit of a collaborative model around digital twin, and that also adds a layer of complexity. So getting started on digital twin journey, if we can have our 3Ps sorted out, that will help you a long way in making digital twin a reality for yourself. A case study, and this is another interesting one where one of our clients was able to actually get those 3 pieces put together: the place, the platform, and the people side of things. So what did we do here? So Lake Macquarie City Council is a council in New South Wales here in Australia, and population of little over 200,000. Really up and coming city there, becoming a regional innovation hub, a lot of diversity, thriving startup community there. The assets operations team there identified a bunch of buildings which were like the biggest energy consumers there. And with the sustainability goal in mind, they decided to do something to these buildings to make them more sustainable, or reduce the energy consumption in them. So they engaged GHD to undertake detailed energy thermal modeling of buildings and create some kind of a plan to first of all assess the sustainability and performance of those buildings, but then also find ways to make those buildings more sustainable. So we did a review of the building automation system, building management system in all these buildings, and created a framework that would allow the council to decide what kind of data exists in these automation systems today, what kind of things are getting automated and what are not, and what kind of energy consumption profiles are there at the moment, but then also have a bit of a roadmap onto how to go from the current state to the desired future state, where you could have X% reduction in energy, Y%, increase in the productivity of the people that are there in the building, or the utilization of the space in those buildings and things like that. So we had that, part of the engagement. But what we also did was, once we collected all that data from the building management systems and the design data and the energy models that we had, the thermal models, we put them together into a tool, and that tool was the platform that was used in this case. And we used a co-creation approach, and we decided we can create a 3D model of this area called Swansea, and use inputs from OpenStreetMap, like the location, orientation, and geometry of the building. Augment that with the building models and the energy models that we had created, and then put in also some real-time data through the Internet of Things kind of a system, like the metering data, the lighting data, and all those things, and bring it all together and integrate this live data and convert it into what we call an operational digital twin. It took us a few months actually, and anyone who has worked with making these digital twins, you would know that sometimes it's more complex than you would think, and we had similar challenge. But fortunately, because we had the 3Ps in place, we knew that these are the 3 buildings that we want to start off by creating a digital twin. We're not talking about doing it for hundreds of buildings, just 3 buildings for a start. We knew the tool that we're going to use as the digital twin platform, and we got people from the council and people from GHD well trained to manage those tools. And then we were also able to bring in the right resources that were needed to continue managing those platforms and those tools, and bringing in the right talent that was required to assess and analyze and bring that data, the digital twin, into life. So all in all, I think the digital twin and the smart building strategy and the roadmap that we created, that's helping the council in creating a more sustainable version of their buildings, and they're doing all kind of what if scenario planning and simulating, what kind of changes. Oh, if they were to upgrade, let's say, a portion of their building and let's say replace a chiller with something new one, what kind of impact it would have on the overall energy profile of the building? Well, now they have those answers, and so that's helping them in the decision making in terms of what to do and what not to do. Lake Macquarie City Council is actually quite innovative in this regard, that they're not limiting these learnings just to themselves. Rather, they're kind of passing things along to other councils in the region and kind of making it a more of a regional aspect. And this is where the state governments come into the picture, wherein the state governments can actually incentivize those individual local governments, councils and municipalities to start sharing their best practices with others in the region, kind of create a state model of digital twin, where each individual building actually feeds into the digital twin for a state. And that's also becoming quite popular. In fact, I realized just earlier today that Digital Twin Victoria has come online with their digital twin model, the online version of the digital twin model, and all kind of open data, all kind of data sets are available on their open data platform now for anyone and everyone to consume and to utilize that. So that's the trend that we are seeing a whole lot, wherein the state governments are coming out with their digital twin programs, and that's helping the local governments, and then in turn helping all the other stakeholders to accelerate this whole transition towards smart cities using digital twins. Well, I think it's been a little over 30 minutes. I thought 30, it's gone to like 40, but it's also a good opportunity for me to take a pause here. And yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out and has any questions, you have my contact details up here. And I'll pass it along to Janet from Smart Cities Council to take over the closing part of this session. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Harman. That was great. I wonder if you could answer one question for me just while we're here. If you've got other examples of the community engagement piece where you mentioned it's a key tool for engaging community, I wonder if you could talk to that a bit more, where it's actually just a layperson, just the general public and the citizens.
Yeah, no, look, there are quite a few examples which comes to mind. I think the one that I would refer back to is that whole, Lake Macquarie thing, because I was personally involved in that, whereas there are lots of other people in GHD doing a lot of work for councils in Australia and New Zealand. But the one with Lake Macquarie is that, once they created their own kind of digital twin version and all, the asset optimization team did it pretty much with the support of GHD and a few vendors. And that's when they realized, well, we could also be talking to the other departments or other divisions within the council. And even though they started with one building, they were like, what if we do a digital twin for another piece of asset, and another piece of asset, and another piece of asset? So the Smart Cities lead for Lake Macquarie Council is now in the digital twin cohort. And last year, they embarked on this journey for a new development that they are coming up with called Morrisett. And the intent was that this is a new development, and they're going to be putting some high density housing in there. There is a train station right next to this development, and there was a whole discussion about what if we put in a high density housing in the vicinity of this train station, what kind of impacts it's going to have, and how do we kind of coordinate the local aspects with the more kind of statewide aspects, where the state transport system is going to be catering to this. So they used a digital twin approach and started creating a digital twin for an entire community, and started using it to engage with their own citizens first and foremost, in terms of, oh, this is where we are planning the new housing complex and all, and started seeking their feedback into the mix, and use that to coordinate with the counterparts in the state government to say, by the way, this is what we are hearing from the community, and this is what we think the development should look like, and the impact it would have on the state transport system. That was a really good example of how some of the progressive clients and councils are actually using digital twin for the betterment of their communities. Hope that answers your question, Janet.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was fantastic and insightful in the sense of the different stakeholders that could be relevant to something like this when you don't even think of that from the outset, really. I'm just going to share my screen again. Right, I promised at the start of the session that I would talk a little bit about something, what else is going on with Smart Cities Council ANZ in the digital twin space. And so here are some examples. We have monthly digital twin hub meets. We have our podcast, the Smart Cities Chronicles, that you can access from Apple and Android and Google. We just ran recently the Aotearoa New Zealand Digital Twin Summit, as I mentioned, and the video recordings for that will be available at the hub, www.digitaltwinhub.org. The URL has been pasted on most of the slides here today. And coming up from the 10th to the 14th, which is what Harman had alluded to earlier, is 10th to the 14th of October is Smart Cities with Digital Twin Week in Melbourne. So if you are able to make it over, that would be great to see you there. But lots of talk about digital twins and smart cities and the coming together of both. And then obviously just in their own entirety, smart cities and digital twin as a topic as well. So have a look at www.digitaltwinhub.org. And you can also access from their Digital Twin TV, which is our YouTube channel with recordings from the Digital Twin Hub. I will finish there. I'll stop sharing. Thank you very much, Harman. Thank you to those who have joined us. I'll sign off now. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.